everyone. This is a re-recording of the Tactile Graphic Readiness session that I did in the Preschool Conference at 2023. My name is Julie Sumwalt. I'm the Braille Specialist at the Wisconsin Center for Blind and Visually Impaired, or WCBVI. Braille Specialist just means that I get to learn about all aspects of Braille and pass them on to people like you. So today, as I said, we're talking about tactile graphic readiness. We'll talk about what tactile graphics are and how you can help your child be ready for them when they enter school. As babies, touch is the start of training your brain to see. You understand the feeling of the tree or grass before your brain can understand seeing the tree or grass. Training is required for your fingers to actually see shapes and detail from what you touch. And as I said, you can help your child or student understand touch for reading tactile graphics at a young age before they get to school. Tactile graphics are raised line drawings to show things like maps, charts, diagrams, and illustrations. You might think that pictures can just be ignored or are not important for your child, but a picture is still worth 1,000 words, even to the fingers. You can teach your child that pictures are really cool and fun. However, we need to be aware that the fingers cannot discriminate as finely as the eyes can. That's just how we're designed. Our fingers simply cannot make out all of the details as quickly or as finely as the eyes can. It's just something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that there are two main approaches to learning. There are whole to parts learning and parts to whole learning. Most of us who can see use whole to parts learning. It's a fancy term for something we're not even aware of. We see the entire object or the whole scene in front of us first, and then we pick out the details. For instance, a young child might see a playground and then pick out, oh, there are swings. I like those swings, and I like that slide. And there are some monkey bars and some other children playing. All the details come second. A person or young child with visual impairment uses instead parts to whole learning. The details are observed first, and then they are put together to make a whole scene or object from those details. For instance, going back to the playground, first, your visually impaired child might hear the squeaky swings, might hear the other children laughing and playing, might hear the sound of the funny ground on the playground. They might touch the monkey bars first, and then put all that together. Oh, we're at a playground. This is fun. There's a progression that needs to happen in order to read tactile graphics. There's a real object, and then a pretend object, and then if you can, there's a third step called kind of a puffy tactile graphic, and then the tactile graphic itself. I'll show you what I mean. For instance, this is an apple. It weighs like an apple, it looks like an apple, it's red. It has a little stem on it. If I were to bite into it, I'm not going to, but it would be crunchy and juicy and sweet. If I pat it, it sounds like an apple. I can smell it. It smells like an apple. Everything about it tells me that this is an apple. This is also an apple. It's fake. It doesn't weigh like an apple. It's very light. It doesn't smell like an apple. It doesn't taste like an apple. I'm not going to taste it, but if I were to try, it does not taste like an apple. It does not sound like an apple if I pat it. Nothing about this apple says that it's an apple. What do you mean this is an apple? Well, it's shaped like an apple. Oh. So there's a cognitive progression that needs to happen between a real apple that is familiar and this pretend apple. So that goes from step 1 to step 2 on the screen. Then if you can go to a puffy tactile graphic. Like these are a whole bunch of apples cut out from a Cricut machine. A Cricut machine can be found in craft stores. I've never personally used a Cricut machine, to be honest, but absolutely everyone I've ever talked to has owned a Cricut machine loves it. So I highly recommend getting one from a craft store. It doesn't have to be fancy or expensive. You can cut out a bunch of these apples and stack them on top of each other, like glue them together on a piece of paper so that the child can feel that this whole thing is an apple. Or you could even maybe try cutting a real apple in half and then putting the half apple on a sheet of paper and putting some heavy tin foil or aluminum foil, over the top of it to make kind of a mold so that your child can feel that this shape of an apple. Then from there, you go to the final step. Okay, now I know the shape of the apple, the puffiness. Now I can go to a tactile graphic outline. You can't feel it from the screen, but this is a raised line drawing. I can feel the apple with my fingers. But in a sighted child, you can understand, would see this as an apple and instantly understand this is an apple. But for a child who has little or no vision, you need to go through these steps to get from real apple to outline of apple. Some other things that you can do for your young child, whether they're sighted or have visual impairments, it's the same for all babies. They need to learn how to compare and sort. For instance, rough versus smooth, big versus little, long versus short, near versus far, or soft versus hard, or a whole bunch of others that I'm sure you could come up with on your own. There are positional words. The fancy term is prepositions. Your child will need to learn beside or next to, between, in or out, left and right, on and off, through, under and above, up and down. And you can use everyday activities for these things, like the book is on the shelf, the dog is under the table, I'm in the shopping cart, things like that. There are also a bunch of books that you can order for free from the Oakmont Visual Aids Workshop volunteers. They're in California, I believe. And I'll show you the paper forms now, and I'll show you the website later. Their catalog is just a sheet of paper, 2 sides, and you can order from this all sorts of things, and they're for free. They're from volunteers. They would like a donation, but you don't have to if you don't want to or can't do it right now. You could always send in a donation later if you wanted. So there are all sorts of books, cards, games, even some math study aids. And then when you see this on the catalog or on the website, then you can go to their order form, just one side, and fill out what you would like and how many you would like. Send this in. They want this done in duplicate. It says down here in the corner. So make 2 copies of this or print out 2 copies and send them both in. And you'll get all these awesome books. They're behind me. I'll show you a couple of them. Look at all these books that you can order and I just got them for free, and you can do the same if you want. Made the poor volunteers work really hard. But here are a couple. These are handmade from the volunteers, and the reason they want donations is for all of these materials that they use to make these books. This is called Open or Close, and very cutely it says, "You have just opened this book." It says it in print, and it says it in Braille on top. You can't see it, but you can feel it. And they have a cute little envelope that you can open or close. And a hand that it's closed now, and then you open it and then close it. And these books are all very short because short attention spans. And again, all of the print is handwritten and brailled on top. Another of my favorite of these books is called Same or Different. And you open it up. These are the same. It's written down here, brailled up here, and there's even a number 1 for the page number, just like there is down here in print. But these are different. It doesn't matter that this is a tree and this is a bird. We're just feeling that these are different shapes right now. And which are these? These are the same. The shapes are actually quite complicated for tactile graphics, but again, all we're doing is comparing same and different, so that doesn't matter. These are different, and so on. And all the books are like that. There's even a card. You can order cards, and these are, this is a zipper to practice zippering, and all sorts of fun things. So again, that's from Oakmont Visual Aids Workshop. They're in California. There are some activities that you can do with your children. You can track lines, which is very important. It's an important skill in learning how to read tactile graphics. You can trace outlines, like I was showing you before. You can place pretend objects into boxes or pockets and then feel inside, like nobody can see inside there, and pull out the button or whatever it is. You can also learn from everyday activities and scheduled playtime, like I was describing before. You can go under the table, you're in the grocery cart, the book or toy is on the shelf, anything you can come up with. For tracking lines and tracing outlines, these are some tactile graphics that I made from American Printing House for the Blind. I think, or maybe it's just American Printing House now. I think they changed their name. American Printing House, or APH. And I did use special equipment to make these, but you wouldn't have to use special equipment. But you can trace lines. I'll show you how to make your own lines later. You can trace these lines, like go slightly up and down and practice this. This is just straight across, really up and down, all these different kinds of lines. You can practice tracing those and having fun with that. Here's a maze. I'll show you this. I'll show you this way. You can start at the circle at the top and then follow this dashed line around. This is tricky. This is hard. Another one that is one of my favorites from APH is you start with a shape at one end of the line, and each line and each shape is different. So this is a star. Again, it's a complicated shape, but all we're trying to do is follow this line to find the same shape at the other end. Here's a triangle and a dashed line, circle and a solid line, and all sorts of shapes and lines to follow. So those can be some fun activities that you can try. And now I'm going to show you how you can do that yourself. One of the files that will be attached to this video is a list of supplies that you can find yourselves in your local town. These are just some suggested materials. There are lots more that you could come up with. It doesn't matter what they look like. You need to be aware of what they will feel like. So you can raid craft stores and hardware stores like Michael's, Joann Fabrics, Ace Hardware, Ben Franklin, etc. Be careful of choking hazards, especially with young children. But I will just quickly read this list to you. But again, it's on file that you can download the PDF. You can use aluminum foil, regular or heavy, as I was explaining before with the real apple. Balsam wood, which I think is what this fake apple is made out of. Beads of any size. They can be little beads, they can be big wooden beads. Again, for choking hazards, I would recommend the big beads, big wooden beads if you can. Brads, and I'll show you what the usual kind of brad, this is a really big one. But it's a circle on top and it has prongs that fold out. We usually use these for holding documents together. But in craft stores, the circle might be a square, a triangle, all sorts of things. And you can get different kinds of brads there. Buttons, cardboard, cardstock, which is what these Cricut cut apples were from. So cardstock might be called paperboard. Construction paper might work, cotton balls, cotton swabs. I talked about the Cricut machine already, and all kinds of fabric, feathers, felt, florist wire, foam sheets, glitter. You might want a glue gun for all of this to put it on the paper, leather, model clay, not what do you call it, pottery clay, but model clay. Paper hole punches, again, most paper hole punches are a circle, but they can come in all kinds of different shapes. Again, you can use paperboard, and you can use that from cereal boxes, macaroni and cheese boxes, I don't know, whatever comes in those kind of paperboard boxes. Pebbles, again, be careful of the choking hazard. Pipe cleaners, you might want to bend the ends in a little bit because they're kind of pokey and might hurt your child. Plastic canvas, plastic wrap. Pom-poms, I've found really tiny ones. Those are awesome. Something called puffy paint. When it dries puffy. Different roughnesses of sandpaper, scented stickers, sequins, they come in different sizes, sticky textured sheets, and you can just cut them in different shapes and stick them right on whatever you want to stick them on. Different kinds of string, tacky glue. Tacky glue is a brand name, and it has a certain kind of stickiness to it that works really well with tactile graphics. Tracing wheels, I'll show you a couple of those. They look like little mini pizza cutters. You find them in fabric stores. And they have different kinds of spokes on the wheels, and they will make different kinds of lines. So I have two different kinds of tracing wheels here. What else can you get? Washers, not a washing machine, but like the metal circles that you find in hardware stores. Something called Wiki Sticks, that's another brand name. There's like sticky wax sticks. A Xyron machine, that's spelled Xyron. That is another brand name. It doesn't require electricity or anything. You just turn a crank, and it puts a sticky back onto whatever can fit between the rollers. So it could be paper, it could be fabric, and whatever can fit through those rollers, or different kinds of yarn. So how you can make some of these line activities for yourself is to use like a mouse pad, just a regular plain commercial mouse pad. This is Braille paper, but you could use cardstock. And then if you want to, you could trace with a marker. You want a marker that bleeds through. So like Sharpie markers might work best. This is a true red marker. It doesn't quite bleed all the way through, but it works okay. So you can just try different markers, and you could mark it and then turn it over, and because it bled through, you can trace with the tracing wheel where your marker went through. You don't have to use a marker. You could just trace on top of the Braille paper and then turn it over, and you'll have bumpy lines. And you'll have different kinds of bumpy lines depending on the kind of tracing wheel you used. There are games made especially for people with visual impairments, and I would like to show you some websites for that. Okay, so games, the first website I have on the screen is Maxi Aids. This is the website, and you just have to scroll down. It's a long website, like all these different games, depending on the age of your child and what might be interesting to them. All sorts of things. You can search by keyword or item and search for tactile games. So let's do that right now and see what we come up with. Tactile games. Excuse my typing. And here we have Braille games and toys. some tactile books and all sorts of tactile things. This is a really fun website to go through. So again, as I said, you can do this according to the age of your child and what their interests are. There are Braille wooden alphabet tiles, number tiles that have print and Braille on them. Some card games, ooh, a really complicated Rubik's Cube looking pyramid, and it's marked with colors and dots so that they can be matched up visually or tactily. What else do we have? Uno cards, what I know is Foursquare, but the generic name is 4 in a row game, and again, that can be done visually or tactily. Lots of board games, but also some baby games too, if you keep going with this. Let's go to a different website right now. This one is called Wonder Baby, wonderbaby.org. The best Braille toys for kids who are blind. Wow. So there are wooden building blocks, just like the regular building blocks that we probably all played with when we were kids. There are buttons with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes in them. Some explanation of the games and a little bit, some tips on how to choose games for your child. But I'm going to keep scrolling here, excuse the scrolling. Braille magnetic numbers, just like you put on the refrigerator. Bingo board with Braille, raised line and Braille color in paint with art book. That might be fun. Cylindrical puzzle with Braille markings. Mini land activity buttons with Braille. On and on and on. Brailled old maid cards, Brailled go fish cards. All sorts of wonderful things. Then there's the Braille Bookstore. Their website is braillebookstore.com. And I'm trying to see card games and accessories, dominoes and dice, board games, brain teasers, toy department. I'm going to let you search for those because you could spend a lot of time. It looks like you can also scroll and go to these links as well as the tabs on top. So those are some ideas for games. Then there are also just toys. And you can go to good old Amazon for that and search for toys for visually impaired children. And as you can imagine, Amazon has like a bazillion different options, but again, you can do some of your own searching from here once you type in toys for visually impaired children in the search bar. And all sorts of things. Some things light up if your child has some vision, or if not, then you can use, let's see, this is a tactile matching game. This looks like water doodle mat. I don't know if that would be word, but anyway, there are all sorts of things. This is really fun to look at. Super sensory stretchy strings. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Here's a baby toy, Munchkin, Mozart Magic Cube, music toy for baby and toddlers. So I think you just punch these buttons, like you could slap them with a little bitty open hand, like a baby, and music would play. Wouldn't that be fun? The next one is Family Connect. Presents and toys for young children. This is also under APH. APH is huge, humongous. So this is another branch or department of their whole agency. So presents and toys for young children. And again, some tips on choosing a toy. And you can look and see if any of these things would be interesting for your child. Just depends on their age and their ability. One more site on this screen for toys is Industries for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And here, those beads that follow a wire, you see those all, those kind of toys are everywhere. You can order them from here if you like. Those are great for getting ready for reading tactile graphics because you have to follow the line. Toys for babies, musical roller, listen up rounds. If your child has good hearing, those might be good. Rhyme and discover books, sensory toys for kids, feel and match tactile board, also discovery sounds, hammer, ooh, you get to pound something. Anyway, toys for older kids, on and on and on. Okay, the next PowerPoint screen goes into books. And I've already shown you some books from the Oakmont Visual Aids workshop, but here's their website. It's a pretty simple website. You can print their order form or their catalog. And let's see, tabs, home, about us, products. And again, here's a nice display online about from some of their books. And Braille learning cards, you might like those. What else? Counting cards, punctuation like periods and commas and things like that. And here are some readiness books. Like here is what aluminum foil feels like. Here's a page from that same or different book. Little and big. Which is biggest? On and on and on. And last but not least, here is the APH website, and then I've gone into their catalog tab. And from here, there are APH products, APH parts, APH press. So if you go to the press, that is where you will see, you can download actually this PDF catalog and order from there. And it's a long catalog, well, not that long, 30 pages. So you can see what you can find in there. What else? Or our very own Accessible Educational Media Materials Center here at WCBVI, the Wisconsin Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. If you go to the Outreach tab and then scroll down a bit, you'll get the Accessible Educational Materials Center. This is available to anyone in Wisconsin. If you're a resident in Wisconsin, you have access to our Accessible Educational Materials Center. And all sorts of things, lots and lots of links. Our website is also quite large. You're welcome to contact us if you have trouble navigating it and would like some help. So I just want to put in a little plug for APH. This is something our outreach director, Dawn Soto, wanted to tell you about. So I'm just going to read her words to you. School-aged students who are blind or visually impaired in Wisconsin may be eligible to obtain and loan specialized educational materials and equipment from the American Printing House for the Blind, or APH. The APH utilizes funds allocated annually by Congress to the federal quota program for the students who meet criteria and are formally registered by their local educational agencies, or LEAs. You might be familiar with that acronym, and agencies. This is called the Act to Promote the Blind, and it was enacted by the 45th Congress of the United States way back in 1879. The APH federal quota program and funding is managed in every state by an ex officio trustee, or EOT for short. An APH EOT is an education official who is designed to manage the APH federal quota program in a state and must attend the APH annual meeting in Louisville, Kentucky, every October. Each agency for people who are blind that participates in the federal quota program must designate an EOT of the American Printing House for the Blind who is entrusted with the administration of the federal quota program within their system or state. Each state has multiple APH accounts, and in Wisconsin, Dawn Soto is the EOT for the statewide and the private and homeschool accounts for children aged 0 through 21 years. Our EOT for the Wisconsin School for the Blind and Visually Impaired, or WSBVI, is Dan Wenzel. All orders for materials to be purchased with APH federal quota funds must be directed through the EOT. Each federal quota order must carry the trustee's approval, as the trustee bears the responsibility for the manner in which these monies are used. A wide variety of learning materials, including Braille books, Braille writers, educational materials, and assistive technology devices, may be available for qualifying students to loan. Oh, I almost forgot. When you raid the craft stores and hardware stores, you might also find bins with little compartments in them that are really handy to keep all of this straight and neat and tidy and out of the reach of little hands. You can also use fishing tackle boxes. Those work great. But here are three of them that one of my colleagues put together for you just to show you. Some broken shell bits, some brads that I was telling you about, sticky foam shapes that are pre-cut in a craft store, buttons, I think these are bits of felt, wiki sticks, what is this? I think these are peelable textures, like you can take off these little dots that you can't see, and smiley faces. Here's some pipe cleaners, some shiny ones, and some bits of string. It doesn't matter what color, again, it's just how it's going to feel. So that's one box, and then I want to show you another box. These are all different, just to show you the different possibilities that you might want to think about when making your own tactile graphics for your child. Stretchy hairbands, corkscrew noodles, hard noodles, not cooked, more brads, feathers, oh, those are fun, some short little popsicle sticks, twine, string, oh, there's my feather, more sticky things. Here's some little pom-poms I was telling you about, different sizes, and colors. Again, the color doesn't matter. Let's see, here's one more just to show you, because this is just so much fun. Some balsam sticks that you could put together, glue on like with a glue gun or something. Here's some more pipe cleaners. Again, you might want to bend the little ends in a little bit. I'll show you what I mean by that, so that they don't poke, because they're very pokey and they could hurt. So now they're nice and soft. So you might want to do that with pipe cleaners, some more foams. They're sticky back so you can peel off. I think these are wiki sticks again. Wiki sticks come in all different kinds of sizes and textures and things. Here are some of those little eyeballs that you can stick on, and they'll feel the round part of it. The little eyeball thing probably won't matter, but you can feel it and hear it rattle around, so that might be kind of fun. Brads again, those are really great. More feathers, buttons, you might want to use some big buttons to prevent choking, and some pom-poms again, different kinds of pom-poms. So that is a little bit about getting your children ready for reading tactile graphics. I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you.